Coming up on today's show.
It bothers a lot of people, and I'm a big believer in sometimes having things that aren't being used or appreciated, and we'll get into the rest of the definition. I do think it has a negative psychological effect on some people.
Now, sometimes I think about, clutter as something that gets in the way. Do you think if it's getting in the way of anything that you do that it could be considered clutter, or sometimes something that's getting in the way is just something that's not in place and put away properly?
So just go to the grocery store and look how things are grouped in the grocery store, because they've got it down to a science, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Decluttering your home, today on Keeping You Organized. Hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we are going to go in the home and start to declutter. It's getting close to spring, and we're going to bring on Geraldine Thomas. We have a special reason. She's with Metropolitan Organizing, or Metro Zing, depending on what part of the country you come from, right, Geraldine?
That's right.
And we're calling this Decluttering Your Home because there just so happens to be a new book. I see your dog likes that too, right? This is awesome. Now, you told me before we started that dog was just going to sit on the chair the whole time, so I don't know what's going on there. He must have got it. Did my voice get him all worked up or something, or what? That's good. All right. Well, anyway, this is live TV. We're gonna fly with it because we always have fun on this show. So anyway, exactly. I was holding up the book, Decluttering Your Home. I love this. I took this with me on a trip, and it's kind of like one of those coffee table books almost. It's got lots of great pictures in it. So I'm one of those picture readers, I like to look at the pictures. So anyway, tips, techniques, and trade secrets. Now, you've been professional organizing for how long?
Since 2002.
Okay, so you probably have a lot of tips and trade secrets, I would imagine, right?
I do, John. I do. Yeah, lots of tips and techniques and all kinds of goodies that I've kind of accumulated over the years.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit first about, you talk in the book about the psychology of clutter. That gets us thinking maybe about, because people have different impressions of what clutter is. How do you kind of approach that?
So I don't think one size fits all for everybody, right? Some people are comfortable with lots of stuff in their house, and some people prefer a more minimalistic approach. So it's not for the organizer to judge. It's more for the person to let the organizer know, what's comfortable. This is aimed at people who want to DIY with maybe a little assist on the side. But I like people to think about how clutter makes you feel, the benefits of decluttering, what exactly is clutter, their definition. I give them my definition, which I'm happy to share. But there's a lot of interesting little twists and turns about what people consider clutter in their own environment.
Well, you've teased us now. We've got to have what your definition is first.
Well, my definition is anything that's unused for a while, not just temporarily. So I always tell people I don't believe in that rule about if you haven't used it in a year or two, let go of it, because I live in North Carolina. I don't use a snow shovel every year. I don't even use a snow shovel every other year. But when I need it, I want it. I want it to be right where I left it. So, I have to keep that. So stuff that's not used, for example, in the kitchen, a lot of people can say that they have like an old pasta maker or wedding gifts or an ice cream maker. They don't use them. They just go to the store and buy pasta or bread or whatever it is. Let those things go.
Now, but hold on a second with that, because, let's say you have room for it, right? And you might not use that ice cream maker, once a month or twice a month or whatever it is. Or maybe you haven't even used it for a year, but is it hurting anything if it's not taking up space that something else should be taking up?
Well, I don't want to use the word hurting anything, because that's yes. Strong, right? However, it bothers a lot of people. And I'm a big believer in sometimes having things that aren't being used or appreciated, and we'll get into the rest of the definition. I do think it has a negative psychological effect on some people.
Right. Okay. Well, so let's talk about some of the people that you've worked with, and how has their maybe definition differed a little bit, or have you actually gotten in any kind of disagreements with people and said, well, and end up going with of course, the client's always right, so you have to go with their definition. But what are some variants on that?
The client is Right. The client, in the way I do business, I believe that the client intuitively knows what's best for them. I don't try and arm wrestle, somebody out of their ice cream maker. Get rid of it, get rid of it. But I do like to plant the seed. Like, maybe if you let this go, if it's not making you happy, or, there's this hot book about anything that doesn't spark joy, let that go.
Yes.
So anything unused, unfinished, unloved, unfinished. Now, John, I don't want you to blush or anything, but are there any projects around your house that you need to finish up?
You'd have to ask my wife about that. I'm sure she has a list somewhere that I'm avoiding.
Even people's crafts. So,
Right.
knitters have unfinished things, or woodworking projects, or whatever. So people need to I like to plant the seed and then let it germinate and come back to it for a while, almost like a little time capsule, right? Think
Right.
about it till the next time I come back, and then maybe you'll be agreeable. Your life would be better without it. Or maybe you need to keep it even longer. That's okay too,
Right.
especially if you have the room for it.
Now, sometimes I think about, clutter as something that gets in the way. Do you think if it's getting in the way of anything that you do, that it could be considered clutter, or sometimes something that's getting in the way is just something that's not in place and put away properly?
Well, that's a very good point. You really did read the book. I'm proud of you. Again, when people go out and acquire things, so sometimes it's not even buying things, right? It doesn't mean they're on the shopping network or whatever, dialing for the Amazon delivery. Sometimes people passively acquire things. So you go to a trade show or something and you bring home all those little, bobbleheads and tote bags and whatever else, visors, all kinds of extra stuff. You're not paying for it, but in the long run, I do think your home or you could pay the price for hanging on to that stuff and not being able to find when you need to find something. You pay that price. Or buying duplicates of things. That's another thing that I hear all the time.
Right. Well, and I think all of us, and some of us buy those duplicate things, right, because we can't find the original one until after we bought in the second one, right? So
that would be correct. Or you don't have a list. So
Right.
I always share the joke about, I have a client and she's okay with me sharing this. We cleaned out her pantry and we found like 14 cans of pineapple. And I said, "What's with the pineapple? Are you like doing something special?" She said, "No, it's just always on my mind that I'm going to make a pineapple cake." And obviously I just keep buying more pineapple and not making any cakes.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's talk about some specific areas of the house that are involved with clutter. And as long as we're near the pantry, let's talk about the kitchen. And what are some quick wins that people can get in decluttering their kitchen? You do a lot of this stuff. You work with people. What are 2 or 3 things that people can do to just get that kitchen under control?
Well, I always say I steal all my ideas. So I have like very few original ideas. So just go to the grocery store and look how things are grouped in the grocery store, because they've got it down to a science, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And that way it's also a nice way to kind of look at how things are stacked and how they're labeled and facing forward. And if that pleases you, try to borrow those tips in your own home. So group your breakfast items together, or if you have children in the house, small children especially, group your snack items together. Or if you're trying to eat more healthy, balanced, less junk food, get rid of the junk food. Why have the temptation there, right? Just keep the good stuff. If you like wine, bring your wine forward.
Right. So that's kind of more the food stuff. And how about some of those things we talked about earlier, utensils that maybe you want to keep, but you don't have them, you don't need them all on the counter, right?
Right. So in those circumstances, I tell people to use your prime real estate for the stuff that really matters, right? So if you haven't used your ice cream maker and bread maker in 3 years, but you're not willing to let go of them, they don't need to be hip height or eye level. They need to be way up or way down, so that, you want the things that you have to have access to every day where you can immediately access them.
Right.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, if you could only come up with a way to get my kids to do the dishes in a timely manner, then I think we'd have the kitchen covered. Anything else for the kitchen that, as far as tips for decluttering?
Kind of go through your drawers. I call it the drawer war. Nobody needs 15 corkscrews and, 35,000 pot holders. I mean, just get down to your favorites. And that's to me a big deal with people, especially people who tell me they don't cook. Well, you don't need a fish spatula and a cake spatula and a frosting, just take what you need.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move from the kitchen into the home office, or really into the digital realm, because I think that's an area that almost everybody, whether it's digital clutter on your phone or on your computer or wherever it is, what are some things that you've seen that have helped people simplify their life and make it less cluttered in the electronic, digital realm?
Well, one thing is just get rid of some of those photos. I mean, the fact that we have cameras in our phones, and I always go back to when the phone first came out and had a camera. I remember telling everybody that is about the craziest idea. Like, who wants to take that many pictures? Well,
yes.
Boy, I learned. Yeah. So Instagram wasn't around then, but declutter while you're standing in line at the grocery store, for example. Don't just stand there, reading the headlines off of whatever magazines are there or snooping through other people's carts. Pull out your phone and start deleting pictures where you're fat or cross-eyed or with people you don't like. Take the easy stuff first, right?
What do you think about the backup services? Do they just cause more problems by, well, okay, I'll take them off my phone or camera and put them on a backup, but I mean, just to hold those photos forever? I mean, what's your philosophy on backing up stuff?
My philosophy is everybody should be backing up. And I'm a big believer, because I don't want to have to plug into something. I like the, cloud solutions. So there's all of these things you do at once. You set it up one and done. So that's my idea of, a great backup system, because I don't have to think about it. But again, it all goes back to, so at your daughter's Sweet 16 party, you do not need 50 pictures of her blowing out her candles and doing whatever she's doing at her party. Just pick the best 3 or 4, and do that with every holiday or vacation or whatever. Our minds are a lot better than we give ourselves credit for. So we don't necessarily need to have tons and tons of photos to remember things.
How about at least one tip on dealing with email? Because we're all kind of inundated with email.
Well, I'm almost scared to talk about email with you, John, because last time I was on with Linda and Leslie, oh my God, I had 100 people email me after that.
Did you really? Oh yeah, that was on our Organizer 411, and we can link to that in the show notes of this episode. But you know what? I think they were just kind of amazed at your system. I don't think it was a negative thing. I mean, I was amazed at it. I thought it was great.
I was told by several people, but they wanted more info, that I was hyper organized, and I've never thought of myself like that. But see, that's what I mean about everybody's system is different. What your comfort level is. So with emails, well, I actually wrote this book by not checking emails as often. So that's one of the ways I accomplished writing this book in a very short amount of time, is I set rules for myself. And I know personally and professionally that email is just this like time warp. It's from, we go in and we spend a lot longer and we don't process. We just open it and check it and then leave it and go back, right? It's very much, to me, I have several clients that are compulsive gamblers, and I know this is a stretch, but checking email reminds me of what these particular clients describe to me as they're like needing to get a fix for gambling. There's always the chance that there's going to be the winner or the jackpot email sitting in there. But for the most part, it's just, a bunch of clutter.
Right. Yeah, I think actually after that podcast, because you talked about setting up a lot of subfolders, right, and keeping the inbox open. That's actually what I after that episode, I went and did that, and I really love it, because I think what's kind of neat is being able to leave work, at least at the end of the day, with nothing in your inbox. And
that's a great feeling.
It is an awesome feeling. Yeah.
Right. And I always tell clients who are really struggling with this, of course, there are certain professions where you just have to be on your email and you have to be available a lot more than, what we'd consider reasonable. But if you're not in one of those professions, I always tell people you don't run up and down your driveway, 60 times a day to check the mailbox. You check it once. Right. Most of it is junk. You let go of it. And then you process, you pay your bills, you do whatever's in the mail, look at your magazines. That is how we should treat our inboxes, but it's just become so convenient to just click. And it's also a distraction. It sort of delivers us from doing something that we might not want to be doing, like dealing with people.
Well, it's interesting too when you think about, I might forget about answering that email. It's just like getting a bill. If you don't pay it, they're going to send you another one, right? Same with email.
That's right.
Okay, We're going to take a quick little break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about some other areas of clutter and more about your book, Geraldine Thomas, Decluttering Your Home, Tips, Techniques, and Trade Secrets. We'll have more of those when we return. When you've got it together, everyone can tell. Your confidence is obvious. Introducing Viewables.com from Smead. Use the Viewables labeling system to transform your drawer of hanging files into a tidy, organized filing system. Using the premium hanging folder tabs, see the label from the front, top, and back. It's easy. Access Viewables.com from any computer, tablet, or internet-enabled smartphone. Let's make some labels. It's free, and there's nothing to download or install. Choose the label type and format your label just the way you want. You can even add index characters or icons for distinctive filing. Set up a free Viewables cloud account, and your secure login lets you save your projects for convenient access from any computer. And with Viewables multi-purpose labels, you can use one label for any type of file, including hanging folders, top tab folders, super tab folders, or oversized items like notebooks and file boxes. Upload a list of file headings and print your complete set of labels in moments. There's even a library of templates for commonly used label sets. It's never been easier to set up neat-looking files that have easy-to-read headings and efficient color codes. Obviously organized. Viewables.com. From Smead, keeping you organized. We are back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about decluttering your home with Geraldine Thomas, Metropolitan Organizing, Metro Zing, from North Carolina. Is it the Raleigh area?
It's the Raleigh area.
Yeah.
I'm in Cary.
Awesome.
That's right.
Awesome. And Geraldine's written a book called Decluttering Your Home, Tips, Techniques, and Trade Secrets. And before the break, we were talking about the psychology of clutter and some of the areas in the home that are cluttered, and then digital, which we've done several podcast episodes on that. I mean, that's going to be around forever. But let's talk about another area in your book, which is calendar clutter. And I think that gets probably along with time management, correct? I mean, what are some areas for us to make us feel less overwhelmed when it comes with our time and our calendar?
Well, I just wrote a blog post about this. So my number one tip is it's a single syllable solution, John. The word no.
No, yes.
Yeah, just say no, and not from the Reagan era, right?
Right.
Saying no to things that your heart isn't into, saying no to things that might not bring you joy, might not be productive. It's going to free up your calendar and really free up your mind to be more present, to be available, to just focus on the stuff that you want to focus on. And one of the other things I'm noticing a lot lately is people are now starting to really feel kind of guilty over having free time. And to me, this is sort of sad. And by free time, they're not, at least the clients I'm working with, are not doing what they want to do. So for example, I'm working with a gentleman and I said, what's your goal? What would, in a perfect world, what would you love to do? And he said, really, between, you, me, and all my kids, I'd love to nap. He said, I'd love to be able on the weekends to take a nap guilt-free. So we've got him to a really good place with all his decluttering, especially around his calendar events. And I said, have you napped? He said, no, I just can't do it. I feel so guilty. And he said, it's okay with his kids. It's okay with his wife. So we've gotten to a point where we don't feel good doing doing nothing, so to speak.
Wow, that's incredible. This might be down a little tangent and not necessarily in the book, but what do you think about goal setting where you verbalize it? So in his example, saying, making the declaration, I'm going to take a nap every day. Do you think that stuff works? Do you think that's powerful to take and, declare that you want to do it, and that'll help you maybe feel less guilty?
I think declaring it verbally is very powerful, but what I really encourage people to do is write it down.
Right.
I read recently that people who write their goals and revisit those written goals are somewhere in the neighborhood of like 78% more likely to accomplish their goals. And that was tied in especially to weight loss, which is one of the hardest goals to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
For most people.
Well, yeah. I think it's like you maybe making a contract with yourself, and there's probably that sense of commitment because I did write it down. So, well, are there any other calendar decluttering tips that you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's okay to leave white space, right? That's one of my goals when I work with somebody is to say, okay, are you surrounding these events in white space? Because white space, my definition is it gives you a few extra minutes to get there. If there's a traffic jam, you're not going to miss your dental appointment because, the train was running through, or your son's piano recital, you'll be able to attend even if the dog runs away 5 minutes before you're leaving the house. So don't cram so much. Leave a little, like in advertising, the white block of space.
Right.
That's what stands out more. And
do you think putting some of that stuff in your calendar? I mean, do you do anything like that where you block out time and just say, I don't know if you put white space on there, but just say, I'm not going to talk to people during this time, or I'm not, what do you think?
Yeah, I have times personally where I check out. I need just quiet time or to read. I like to just hang out and read for pleasure, not business related stuff, not emails, not whatever. So yeah, I think it's really very important to go ahead and schedule whatever those quiet moments where you can kind of regroup without guilt, right. Whatever helps you like that.
Well, we're almost out of time, but there's one part of the book that you have in here, and it's kind of hard to show, or for those listening, there's a whole checklist and little things that you help, kind of tools to help people. Tell us a little bit about what's in the book in that checklist section.
Okay, well, anybody who works with me or knows me knows that I am absolutely a maniac for lists. And in my book, there are two different kind of lists. There's a checklist and just a regular list. So listing to me is where you just kind of let your thoughts flow, and then eventually you can go back and regroup them. Some people use a mind map. That's okay. Whatever works for you. And then checklists are used more for what I consider the routine things. So if you're packing to go to college, or you're packing to go to the Bahamas or whatever, you might have a checklist of all the things that you need on the plane, on your carry-on, and then all the things you'll need for a beach type of vacation. I myself, this is again falling into the hyper organized realm, but like for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinners, I keep my grocery list because I tend to make the same things over the holidays, and I just tuck it in with the roasting pan and the Christmas stockings and all that stuff that I pull out once a year. I don't have to rethink, get 6 bottles of champagne for New Year's and 3 whatever. So lists to me are just such a big time saver.
That's phenomenal. Well, anyway, like I said, we're kind of out of time, but let's tell a little bit about Metropolitan Organizing and who you like to work with and how people can get a hold of you.
Okay, so metropolitanorganizing.com. I'm located in Cary, North Carolina. I've been in business since 2002, and my clients are people who want to declutter their homes, their small offices, or their inboxes.
Oh, that's great. Well, Geraldine, as usual, now I don't think you're hyper organized. I think you're perfectly organized, and we'll get into that. Maybe that's a whole podcast episode right there on hyper organization. What is it?
What's behind? A whole panel of hyper organized.
That's
people.
Right. Boy, no one would get a word in edgewise probably, but anyway. Well, we always enjoy talking with you, and now hopefully, folks, you will be motivated to declutter your home. Get the book. It's great. We'll have links to that in the show notes for the podcast as well. And we'll see you next time on Keeping You Organized. Coming up next time on Keeping You Organized.
First of all, it's a good idea to have them in a place where they're all together. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a home where no one knows where the passports are, birth certificates, the title to the car is in the car. Maybe it should be in the house, maybe near the mortgage with the deed. So when things are scattered around, it just makes it difficult for anyone to have to touch base with those papers and be able to locate them, quickly and succinctly.